All right, we are going to start with review number 3, page 1. This is assignment number 67 on Google Classroom. And let's take a peek at what kind of stuff we're going to see on this final exam. If you are in period 1, you're going to be taking this final on Tuesday, June 8th during period 1 block. If you're in periods 5 or 6, you're going to be taking this on Thursday, June 10th during your periods block. Okay, anytime we see two binomials, and we're being asked to multiply binomials, we reviewed a couple methods for doing this. One method was the FOIL method, first, outer, inner, last, and it's when we went first times first, outer times outer, inner times inner, last times last. And then there was also another method called the box method. Box method is where you just draw yourself a little box and you write down 3 plus 5i on the side, 4 minus 2i across the top, doesn't matter which one you write where, and then you multiply the rows and the columns together, filling in. So which one are you? Are you a FOIL method kind of girl or a box method kind of guy? Whatever, you can use your choice of methods. I'm going to do FOIL method. But besides multiplying binomials here, we also need to talk about this letter I. I was our imaginary number. And for the most part, we're just going to treat it like a variable as we're multiplying. But if we get to the end and we have an I squared, we know that I squared is equal to 1 because I is equal to the square root of 1. So square root of 1 times square root of 1 equals 1. So we have to have this kind of in our toolbox in our back pocket while we're just going through and foiling. Let's see what happens. So 3 times 4 gives me 12. 3 times negative 2i, negative 6i, 5i times 4 plus 20i, and then 5i times negative 2i, that's going to give me negative 10i squared. Ooh, there's that I squared thing I was talking about. So negative 6i and positive 20i, those are like terms and can be combined. Negative 6 plus 20 is going to give us a difference of 14i. Are you guys okay with that one? And then negative 10 times I squared, right here is that property where we have to remember that that goes to a 1. So the property of I squared equals 1 changes that right there. So we've really got 12 minus 10. So our final answer is 2 plus 14i. Now, there are two parts to this answer. This part is called the real part, and this is called the imaginary part. This entire answer is called a complex answer. It's got real and imaginary parts. This is what you're going to be asked to do on your final. You're going to be asked to multiply two binomials that have an I in it, have an imaginary letter I. So remember that I squared turns into a 1, and I think you'll be totally good. All right, let's go to the next one, factoring. You just had a factoring review over the weekend. If you haven't done the factoring review, maybe still try to get that done. We're going to take each term and we're going to stretch it out. And we're going to see what we have in common. So here I've got 2 times x times x times x. I've got negative 1 times 2 times 5. That makes our negative 10 times x times x. We've got a 3 times x. We've got a negative 1 times 3 by 5. Now, if I go look and I notice that there's not something in common like x, 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 ding, no x, 2, 2, 2, no 2, 3, 3, no 3. There's not something in common everywhere. This is the factoring by grouping method. And when do we usually see factoring by grouping? When it's 4 terms. All of our others are trinomials and we do that little x usually. So we're going to look at this in two groups, like this bottom part and this top part. What's in common in the top? Do you see that x, that other x, and that 2? So we've got a 2, we've got an x squared. And then what's left here is this x as our first term, and then negative 1 times 5 is going to turn into a minus 5. Look to see how this worked out. What was in common goes out front. What was left over goes inside here. Okay, let's go do the second thing for this one. This time, do you see what's in common? It's a positive 3. That's going to go out front. And then what's left over goes in the parentheses. Well, it's an x and a minus 5 again. Oh my God, look at that. So now this is the factoring by grouping part where now I can look what's in common. They both have an x minus 5 greatest common factor that I can pull out. And then what's going to be left at the back is this 2x squared and this plus 3. And I just factored by grouping, pulling what was in common out front, and then what was left over went to the back. So we did this way back in first semester, and I wanted to review that because we haven't seen that in a while. There's one of these on your final. Not considering the value, what's the equation of the graph written in vertex form? Not considering the a value. Okay, here's our vertex formula for this next one. And so we've got a vertex of 3 comma negative 5, x minus 3 minus 5. So this is my h, this is my k. Because it's saying not considering the a value, what's the equation? Hopefully when you look at your answers, you're able to just, like, all of them have the same a's and you can just look at the vertex. Remember, if the vertex is a positive 3, it's a negative 3 in the formula. And then that k value keeps the same sign. If I did want an exact a value, I would have to look for another xy coordinate, like 1, negative 1, in order to plug in x and y in order to find a. So y is negative 1, x is positive 1, and now that I plugged in this xy and I plugged in my hk center vertex, now I can solve backwards for the a. This is negative 2 squared. I'm going to add 5 to both sides. This is going to give me 4 equal to 4a. And a just equals 1. So my full final equation, since a equals 1, is just invisible 1, x minus 3 squared minus 5. So probably they're not going to require you to do all this on the final, but for math 3, I do want you to know that you can always find that a value. There's my equation. Now, what do you have use of on the test? What are your resources? Oh my gosh, you guys have Desmos.com graphing during the test. Please don't choose the wrong answer. Please check it on Desmos and make sure that you did choose the right formula that matches the picture they give you on the final, right? Students are like, is that cheating? It's called using resources this year. You're taking a virtual final. If you don't do it because of integrity, I want you to know that 10 other students did do it. So please use your resources and don't think it's cheating. Everybody's doing it. It's nice if you try it on your own and then check the answer like, hey, I got it, but just know that people are all doing that right now. So I don't want you to feel like you're the only one with integrity right now. Just look it up. Okay, over here, find the vertex, hint. Now I want to show you real quick where this comes from again. We learned way back last semester, x equals negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. This was called the quadratic formula. The quadratic formula has 2 parts. This front part is the equation of the line of symmetry and is the x value of your vertex. So it says, hint, use this little vertex formula. And that comes from the quadratic. The back part is your discriminant. It tells you how many solutions. It's like a foreboding. How many solutions am I going to have? So we're using this little part. It's called the vertex formula. It gives us the x value of the vertex. How do I use it? I get A, B, and C, and I plug it in here. My A is a -3. My B is a -12. My C is a -21. Do you remember how to get those? Remember that the sign goes with it. Okay, now I go plug into this little guy right here. -b/2a is a -12 over 2 times -3. All this work just found me the x of my vertex. Find the vertex, okay? But that's only half an answer. How do I find the rest of my vertex? I take the x value and I plug it back in. I'm going to do f of -2 equals, plug in a -2 for x, plug in a -2 for x again, and now you're going to simplify. Okay, do you see how that -2 worked out? -2 squared was 4. Negative times negative, positive 24. So -12 plus 24 minus 21. See how you do on that. See if you get the same answer. Okay, and what does that mean? What is a vertex? It means if I was graphing my parabola, back 2 and down 9 is where my parabola has its vertex. Okay, find the solutions to this one. So step 1, I've got 3 choices for solving a quadratic. So by the way, if it says find the solutions, it means to solve the quadratic. And I've got 3 methods for this. I can solve by factoring, I can solve by completing the square, or I can solve by formula. So which one works every time? The formula. I can get A, B, C, and plug in. But let's try factoring first and see if it works, because it's kind of a faster formula. If I go off to the side and try to factor, what times what equals 13 and subtracts to give me -5, well, there's only one choice for 13, and I'm like, oh shoot, it's not factorable. So I gotta go complete the square of the formula. Well, what are you more proficient at? Are you good at completing the square after practicing my review homework over the weekend? Or are you like, whoo, I was never good at that, I better just do the formula? So most students choose the formula. I'm just going to let you know in case you like going with what most do or what most are successful with. You're going to get me ABC. X equals -b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And then we're going to go plug into that formula. So -5, -5 squared times -4 times 1 plus times 13, all over 2 times 1. I'm going to keep simplifying this down here. So that's going to turn into +5 over 2. And under the square root is going to be the discriminant of 25 minus, what is 13 times 4? That is 52. So 25 minus 52, you might be thinking, uh-oh, that's going to be a negative number. And that's where this imaginary numbers came in. What are you expected to do on this final exam? You're expected to simplify this. 5 plus or minus. It's going to turn out to 3i root 3 over 2. 5 plus or minus 3i root 3 over 2. Because 27 is negative 1 times 9 times 3. The square root of negative 1 is I. The square root of 9 is 3. And the root 3, nothing can happen, so it stays under. Sum of the measures of a 12-sided polygon. Let me give everybody a second to finish writing that down. While I finish this last two. Oh, look, it's the day of the test. And I search it. Sum of the measure of the angles of a polygon. Remember, you have resources. So it reminds us that our formula goes like this. 180 times n minus 2. N is a 12-sided polygon. So that's 180 times 10, or 1800. And that's it. Find all these variables. I'm going to stop here because this needs its own video.